Hello, everybody, and welcome back to a very, very special LinkedIn Live. It's the first one I'm ever hosting, so hopefully the technical stuff goes well, the slides we've got prepared are here, and hopefully Kris Bennett is with us. Kris, aka Blockchain Beard Guy, can you hear me?
I can. It is good to hear your voice, my friend. How are you today?
Likewise, I'm very well. It is grey and cloudy in Dublin here, as usual. But I'm very excited. I think it's super early for you, hence it's I get a little bit dark in the beard cave right now. But very, very happy to be here. Very, very happy to share what I hope will be a really useful, really informative, really educational session for anybody out there who's interested in blockchain and Web3. I followed your stuff from early. As I was getting into Web3 and blockchain, you were a big inspiration to me. And now I get the opportunity to bring you back and to help the audience to learn a little bit about a recent collabo that we've done, to talk about it a little bit, and also to have the community benefit a little bit from your wisdom. So thank you again for being here.
Oh, you bet. I'm so excited about this. Always looking for any chance I can to work with you, Anthony. But when it's something like this, and I know we're putting out content that I hear people asking for all the time, I get even more excited because this really is valuable information for a lot of people. And the feedback we've gotten so far has just been incredible.
Love that. Love that. I can see the people starting to chime in now. So thank you, everybody. Do say hi in the comments. Let us know where you're from. Let us know whether you're working in Web3, working in blockchain, what projects you're working for, what you're interested in. Please, let's get that going in the chat so we've got a little bit of a historical record of who is here and what you guys are up to. Also, please do start preparing your questions in advance. We're going to have as much time at the back end of this for Q&A as we possibly can. Everything related to the work we do about blockchain, about Web3, anything you want to ask us, we'll have open time for at the end of this LinkedIn Live. So please, guys, do prepare your questions. We welcome those. We'll try and stay on for as long as we possibly can to answer anyone's questions that are here before we get kicked out by LinkedIn or whatever else happens. Before we get started, I'm sure a lot of people who join the session know me, but Kris Bennett, aka Blockchain Beard Guy, aka Chief Learning Officer at Blockchain Training Alliance. Tell us about you, your background, your interest in blockchain, and tell us a little bit about BTA.
You bet. Well, my blockchain journey began in earnest about 6 years ago now. Time flies in the technology world, that's for sure. But before I teamed up with BTA, I spent a little over 20 years in IT services consulting. Always on the delivery side, and got very, very excited about blockchain about 6 years ago. To me, it really looked very familiar, and that's what got me excited, meaning that, I'd seen these huge tidal waves of change with Web 1 and Web 2. And when I saw that's what Web 3 was all about, I got excited because, and I think I speak for a lot of people who are into blockchain, I've never been this early to the party before. Every other technology that I've worked with, the players have already been established. The best practices have been documented. There's very, very little room to contribute something new. That can absolutely not be said in blockchain. So that's really what got me hooked. And of course, anytime there's something new and revolutionary, what is the first step? Well, it's getting people trained and educated, making them realize why this is such a significant moment in history. So I was fortunate enough to meet up with some of my other co-founders, and we started BTA with the mission to train both technical and non-technical people alike, because it takes all different kinds of skills to be successful in anything in life, including blockchain. And shortly after that, was fortunate enough to meet up with you, Anthony, and we started comparing minds and seeing that we think about things in similar ways. So like I said, any chance we get to work together, I'll always jump at the excuse to do so.
Appreciate that, Kris, and thanks for the intro. And for those who don't know the kind of backstory, haven't heard me talk about this before, as I was coming up in the early role that I had in blockchain, working at Deloitte, I was watching this hirsute male driving his truck, through the Colorado countrysides, talking about Bitcoin and Hyperledger and the kind of promise of decentralization, thinking, this guy's really good. He speaks from the heart. He doesn't talk with any jargon. He's just telling us like it is, with no particular agenda other than he loves the technology, he loves what he's doing, and he loves to educate people, help people engage with something in a hype-free, ego-free, and really, really compelling way. And I've always loved that about your content. A lot of the stuff that I produce has taken inspiration from that. And now look at us. 6 years later, we're still early. I still feel like this industry is still only just shaping. And for those people joining in today, I'm kind of listening and watching in the comments here, people saying, I'm technical, or a technical person looking to work in blockchain, or I'm a non-technical person. Are there jobs in Web3 for people like me? This session is for you guys. Whether you're technical or non-technical, this is designed to give you the full context as far as we can around who's being hired, who's working in blockchain. That, honestly speaking, the barriers to entry are lower than everybody thinks. There are roles for everybody in this sector, in every geography in the world. You go on to any jobs pages, there are always roles. And even if they're not listed there, you can find yourself by serendipity, misfortune, or a little bit of deliberate action in organizations that work with blockchain technology relatively easily. And so our goal today is to help lower those barriers, to help you guys realize it's easier than you think. Secondly, to present a little bit of content that we've created to show you and to kind of provide a little bit of background behind that, to give you a few tools for those who just want to go and do a couple of quick things on their own. And then also to kind of showcase a little bit that Kris and we have developed a dedicated training course for this. It's called the 10 Things That They Don't Tell You About Growth in Blockchain. That's personal growth of projects and businesses you may found or you may choose to work with, or specific projects that you do. Right. So for those who are interested, that's a separate thing. That is behind the paywall. That is content and training that you can get on Blockchain Training Alliance. If you don't want to go there yet, if it feels like that's a little early for you, if you're still trying to get your feet, don't worry. We're kind of taking some sneak previews of some of the training content, so you guys can see some of the slides today, get a little bit of feel for what we think is needed, why we believe that the barriers are super low. And then if that leads into something else later on, we'd be delighted to train you. We'd be delighted to have you guys on one of the courses that we do. At the same time, stick around, because at the end, there will be a discount code. Melissa doesn't know that yet, but there's going to be one. And so for those people who have been listening into the stream, people who've been on this, there's definitely going to be a juicy discount on the training course if anybody wants to join it, if what you've heard today is compelling and interesting to you. If it isn't, and you've just joined us for some chat and a few questions, that's great too. We welcome everybody. There are a million different paths into blockchain and Web3. So take your own path and go with my blessing and Kris's blessing. So let's get into it, shall we? Kris, I mean, a part of the comments we're already getting here from people saying, I've been working in the software industry for this amount of time. I've been working for company X. I'm non-technical, et cetera, et cetera. Help us understand, who are the people that you train, right? You've been doing remote training, you've been doing in-person training, all on the topic of blockchain and Web3. It's not just devs, right?
No, Anthony. And I think of all the misconceptions in the world of blockchain, that is probably the single biggest one. There's this very prevalent idea out there that if you want to roll in blockchain, if you want to work in this space and contribute, you have to be someone deeply technical. You have to know how to write really, really good code. And you have to come from this extensive software engineering background. Really, the nothing could be further from the truth. In our courses, we see a number of technical folks, but we see a lot of non-technical folks too. And, there's a couple things you need to understand about blockchain. Number one, these tend to be very, very complex cross-organizational projects. There are a lot of management concerns that go into it. And there are a lot of things that you need to get your stakeholders to align on before that first line of code is written. And that means that, we need folks with solid project management skills. We need folks who understand biz dev and marketing and how the use of blockchain changes the value proposition that you're offering to your customers or your end users. There's a tremendous skills gap right now in blockchain. If you don't have hiring managers coordinating with hiring managers at other organizations, you're probably getting into bidding wars with your partners and folks in your business network without even realizing it. So it really does take all skill sets. And what we spend a lot of time in class talking about, and Anthony, what I love about what you put together, it really drives home this theme that blockchain is not about picking up a new set of skills. It really is about taking the existing skills that you have and doing the things you already enjoy doing and learning how to apply those skills into the new world of Web3. And that's why I think your course is such an amazing fit to our catalog and what we've been teaching.
This is applied learning, and I mean to the people who are coming through in the comments. Yes, this is being recorded. First things first. Secondly, people listing the roles that they have at the moment, and so on and so forth. I have hired people into blockchain teams with absolutely zero technical blockchain knowledge before, but with an appreciation or with a passion for the technology. And so I think there's an important differentiation between, you don't have to be a coder, but you do have to have an appreciation for the concepts. You probably should have some empirical experience, and we're going to get into that in the slides we'll show in a minute, of working with Web3. You should have an opinion on what it means, why you're interested in it, and what you're interested to do. You know, it's not enough just to say, hey, I've been doing something over here for 20 minutes. I want a Web3 job. It's a little bit deeper than that, but at the same time, the barriers are still super low, right? Hiring manager is a role in blockchain, right? There are any number of projects that need to hire talent and maintain talent. I've seen people who've come from running nightclubs to working in growth organizations in blockchain, not because they were great nightclub managers. You know, that's part of it, right? Community management and maintaining a vibe is important. Social media and Discord and so on and so forth. Like these are still things that matter. But at the same time, those people on the side were interested or were participating in projects or were part of a blockchain community. And so they had empirical knowledge without being paid for it as a job. And so I think these are some of the really interesting components around blockchain and Web3, which again says to me, the barriers are super low. The requirements, nobody has been working in blockchain for 10 years. Cryptography, you can argue differently, but you know, in this scene, working for projects or layer ones or layer twos or exchange and so on, no one's been doing that for 10 years mostly. So it's still a relatively blank canvas as to the different paths in which you can get in. And hopefully what we present today can demystify some of that, give you guys some framework. And again, if you're curious to learn more, we've got 5 hours of on-demand training content for you. If you actually then want to go through that in your own time, start creating your own plans, your own strategies, even your own business cases, or your own plans to be a founder of a blockchain dApp or a blockchain project, a lot of that in there too. Let's jump into it. I'm going to put up the slides on stream, and hopefully you can see that. Kris, are the slides coming up on screen there? Somebody in the chat, let me know. Can you see the slides now?
Yeah, they look great for me. I'll watch the chat here. See if we see any problems.
Somebody tell me if you can see something that says 10 things they never tell you about growth in blockchain. I'm working on the assumption people can see this, and if they can't, I think there's also a bit of a lag on some of the comments as the bot moderates it. But what we created was this, right? So we called it 10 things they never tell you about growth in blockchain, because this is applied knowledge. This is not a lot of the open source content that's available today that says this is what Bitcoin is, or this is how Bitcoin works, or this is what a Solidity smart contract is. These are practical applied learnings in 3 kind of key areas, and I'll get into that. Why did we do it? You know, we do love a meme around here, and Kris and I, we've got a lot in common, right? We both are very passionate about this space and the technology. We both are passionate about training and educating others, but also doing that in an objective way. Right? Hopefully what you hear today is not shilly. This is not saying this is the only place you can get this knowledge. This is not the only route into a career in blockchain and Web3 for you, but this is our experience, and we think we've got a healthy perspective that can help people go faster or go better or go with more clarity or more conviction, because we believe that's possible. We've seen it. We've done it ourselves. We have students of ours or colleagues of ours who've gone and forged their own path from completely diverse and random backgrounds, geographically, demographically, training and background, professionally, et cetera, et cetera. And we also have beards. You don't have to have a beard to work in blockchain, and it doesn't necessarily help either. But while we're talking about commonalities and things we have in common. So the bigger course, the full curriculum, this is the stuff that we put together. So 3 kind of key buckets here for me were personal growth, right? How do you get in? How do you learn about blockchain? How do you identify the jobs that are relevant to you, the things that you're passionate about? And then how do you talk to other people about that? So we're not going to cover that today, but how do you pitch the idea, the concepts around blockchain, Web3, decentralization, the technical capabilities that come with it to other people? If you're working in a corporate role or in a line role or in a startup, and you would like to pitch the idea of re-architecting what you build, how do you start without saying powered by blockchain, right? Or other jargon that if you looked at my poll from Friday, there's so many shorthand terms that we use for blockchain. Even blockchain as a term and Web3 as a term creates bias at this point. So how can we objectively talk to others about our passion for this technology, or why we think it may be applicable in the projects or the companies that we work in? Then we get into business growth. And this one is my home turf. This is stuff that I've been doing my entire career on. How do you establish a business strategy, a growth strategy for a particular project? That could be a decentralized app. That could be building your own chain. That could be building some infrastructure or applications around the side, analytical tools. It could be anything. It could be building your own project in a Web2 company that involves using blockchain, crypto, public ledgers, hyperledger, private networks, any of the above. Right? How do we do that? And how do we create a strategy that's compelling and differentiating? Right? Deciding which blockchain to use, deciding where to locate in the world. The great thing about Web3 is it is typically decentralized and borderless, and there are a number of different countries that are vying for your attention, that are willing to give you a whole bunch of different benefits, funds, access, community, etc., depending on where you choose. How to get funding, critically important one. And Samson Williams has already dived in and said he wants to do a specific deep dive on that one. So I'm holding him to that. That's going to be a future session, maybe for later in August, specifically around how do you raise funds. It's a really interesting and important thing that blockchain, crypto, initial coin offerings, and the derivatives of that over time have lowered the barriers to entry for funding projects these days. And also, Web3, generally speaking, is very well capitalized today. So there's lots of available grants or fundings or VCs or investment for projects in this space still. So a lot to be done there. Again, we're not going to cover that bit today. We're going to cover more the personal growth side. But again, super, super important as you're thinking about either your own project or how to relate to other projects and get an understanding of the wider Web3 ecosystem. And then, importantly, how to grow the community or an ecosystem around your particular project. Super, super important as you are looking at network effects, flywheel effects for whatever you do in Web3. And then the couple of themes at the end there is more specifically around delivery excellence. So I've been working on blockchain technology delivery for 6 years with architects, with engineers, with developers, integrating into enterprise systems on pure public systems. Here's some kind of tips and tricks here specifically around how to create a great team and how to accelerate great delivery. Right, we go through a whole bunch of stuff there around what the typical teams look like, interchangeable roles. How do you think about QA, testing, infrastructure, all of the above, agile delivery. Again, not for today, but this is the full whack, right? So I'm going to park this now. I'm going to get past this because I know you guys are here for the bit that's relating to you, which is how do I get a job in blockchain? Right? How do I actually build a career here, or how do I give myself the best chance of working in and around this space? And so we're going to talk about 3 modules. We're going to talk about learning. We're going to talk about identifying a job, and then we're talking about nailing the job. And so learning, Kris's specialist topic here as well. First things first. And Kris, I'm sure you're going to cover this with all of the students as they come to you, or you're going to get a whole bunch of questions saying, where do I start? Right. And so for me, whether you're passionate about the space or whether you're starting from scratch, it's important about identifying why am I learning and what do I need to learn? Right? What are my knowledge gaps? Are they technical? Do I want to gain technical capabilities? Do I want to understand the business implications of this technology, how it can be applied to me? Maybe I don't need to know it at a code level, but how do I understand why this technology is beneficial? What are the use cases? Where should it be applied and where not? Right? How do we scale and grow ecosystems in Web3 or with the decentralized or distributed applications? Maybe I want to understand it from a legal perspective. Right? Maybe I'm a general counsel, or maybe I'm working in the legal industry, and I want to advise startups or projects, but I need to understand what's underneath the skin of this particular industry or this particular solutions, right? Or maybe it's more of a philanthropic or anthropological question for you. Right? Is what are the social implications of this? How does this change the future of work? How does this change accessibility? What are the role of NFTs in the financialization of everything? And is that a good thing? Is that a bad thing? Right? I mean, so many different angles. But before you even start, this is like, to what end? Right? What is my goal? I mean, Kris, when people come to you and they start with, I love this, but I don't know where to start. Like, I'm assuming that's a fairly common question or concern for you, right?
Probably the most common one. And, I always think back to Mark Twain's famous quip that history does not repeat itself, but oftentimes it rhymes. And we see so many parallels with what's happening in the Web3 space right now with what happened in Web 1 and Web 2. And if you think back to the internet, this is a perfect example. I can tell you, 25, 30 years ago, everybody wanted to know, how does the internet work? And if you ask most people that question today, I don't know. Who knows, right? None of us really know that. We kind of stopped worrying about it. What became much more important in the years and the decades since is, what can you do with it? What new opportunities does it open up? What are the business, legal, social implications? Everything else you've got listed there. So again, I'm going to sound like a broken record. I'll ask for your forgiveness right up front, but being deeply technical is absolutely not a prerequisite. It really is about finding what part of this space interests you the most, brings you the most joy, or fills your heart with the most passion, and go out and plant your flag and claim it. Because, like Anthony mentioned a moment ago, this is still very, very new. And that means the gatekeepers aren't here yet. They're coming, but you have the chance to kind of sneak in now before they show up.
100%. And not saying that even when the gatekeepers do arrive, that should preclude anything, right? There will for a considerable period of time be more jobs in more blockchain and Web3 projects than there will be supply of people filling those jobs. Everyone's running hot right now, regardless of where we are in different cycles. And so again, one thing I say very, very often is that blockchain and Web3 needs more lawyers. There's going to be regulation. There's going to be an increasing number of startups and projects spinning up who need to think about foundations, who need to think about securities law, that need to think about just the basics of founding decentralized organizations. They need lawyers, right? And the guys who've been doing dispute resolution for Coca-Cola are probably not the same guys who are going to be helping Web3 startups to flourish. And so there's a whole bunch of different paths and routes in that people can take here. First things first, and whenever you read about people learning about blockchain and Web3, a lot of people will say, get your hands-on learning or empirical learning. Start to get to use some of the tools and the applications in this space, because they are different. Where the internet taught us that we have to think about privacy and security, with blockchain and Web3, you have to think about privacy, you have to think about security, you have to think about social media, and you have to think about cryptography. And also the kind of user experience is going to be different than username and password, right? So protecting your private keys, thinking about custody management, thinking about engaging with exchanges is going to feel a little bit different to online banking. It's going to feel a little bit different to using a password manager. And you can get to a very, very extreme level on this stuff. But ultimately, start with a budget of $50, maybe even less, and go play around. Create one, probably multiple wallets if you're going to want to play around with 2 or 3 different blockchain platforms. Go and sign up to an exchange. Try moving crypto on and off the exchange. Right? Moving into your own wallet, self-custodying, managing the keys yourself, going and spending some of that crypto on something. It could be a non-fungible token. It could be a crowd loan for somebody, investing your money in somebody else's project so they can succeed. It might be playing a game or anything to that end. Some of these are play to win, some of these are free to play, some of these you earn crypto. If you go into Revolut right now, there's actually a learn to earn collaboration between Polkadot and Revolut. If you're a Revolut customer, even if you're not, you sign up super quick, and you can get $15 worth of DOT straight away on Revolut for doing some learning courses, which will also upskill your knowledge in cryptography, blockchain, and key management. Right, super cool. And that's just one example off the top of my head. Yes, I'm a little bit biased because it's Polkadot, but at the same time, that's something you can go and do with relatively low effort and get started, get moving, because that's going to then help you to put context around how this works. What are the platforms? What are the exchanges? Where do I buy NFTs? What does the user experience look like? And your business mind or your Web 2 mind is going to be spinning, saying, why is that different? Why is that this way? What do I not like about that? What is it resonates with me for that? This is the empirical experience. You don't have to have thousands of dollars invested in crypto. That's not the point. It's about applications. It's about doing things in a different or a decentralized or a better or more efficient way. And the more you play, the more you're going to have context that by the time you get to a job interview, you're going to have an opinion about how those platforms work, about how their applications work, about what their community is good and bad at. And those opinions matter.
Yeah, and shameless plug, the $50 you mentioned starting as an investment, that could be the $50 you save with the coupon code. Just saying, guys. Just saying.
That's a bit of a virtual checks and balances, Kris, but I like it. I like where your head's at. So you've saved $50 today. So go get it and put it on crypto. We're beginning to sound like a late night shopping channel now, so we must stop that. But at the same time, also, if you're hands-on, if you are a developer architect, here's another whole bunch of tools that are available to you. There are so many open source, GitHub, repositories, tools, sandboxes. Kris, I know from the training that you've done, there's a whole bunch of materials that you regularly get into. But Ethereum has them, Hyperledger has them, others have them. What are some of the kind of the free resources you can point people to if they want to get their hands on some free code or some templates?
Absolutely. So, I'll just, if you are technical and interested in getting hands-on, I would tell you so many people, including myself, vastly overestimate that technical learning curve. You're talking about maybe a Saturday morning, sitting down, with a couple cups of coffee, and you've got a smart contract app up and running. The learning curve just isn't that bad, but there are some great resources out there. Ethereum is a really good platform to start with if you're just kind of trying to pick from this sea of names. And Truffle Framework has some really, really good tutorials, getting started guides. In addition to that, there are a lot of content creators that are popping up in this space. For me, it was real helpful just to sit down and watch a couple of YouTube videos and see how people put their code together and wired it up. But there are just a number of great resources to help you get hands-on. I think you'll have the same experience that so many technical folks have had. You get an application up and running and you kind of go, whoa, that was it? That wasn't that bad.
Yeah, for sure. The example I always use for this one is I've always wanted to learn how to play the piano, but I'm not classically trained. I've never learned how to read music. It just doesn't really kind of chime with my brain for some reason. But I learned how to play 70% of one song by a band called Jack's Mannequin, one of my favorite songs. I learned it by watching somebody putting their hands on the keys and kind of doing a play along video on YouTube. This video is like 10 years old. And so I just learned the positions. I put my hands on the keys, and the rest of it I just kind of a little bit manipulated. But that only teaches me how to play one song by memory. Right. And so that's the song. And that doesn't teach me how to read music. It doesn't teach me how to put together a piece. It doesn't teach me how to play up and down different keys. But at least I'm passionate and I can do something. And I think that's the point, right? It's just get over that first hurdle and realize how you feel about it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. You find out pretty early when you start your blockchain journey that it's not as intimidating as you think. And once you kind of feel confident in your skills, you look around and you realize you're standing there alone. There's not a lot of competition. A lot of folks perceive the barrier to entry to be a lot higher than what it is. And again, that just makes now such an incredible time to jump in. I know I sound like a broken record here, but this space is going to look very different in a year, 2 years, 5 years time. Now is really the critical moment to be getting involved.
100%. There's a whole bunch of informal channels as well. I mean, we talked about YouTube as a place to go and get particular information. There is a huge amount available on social media, a lot of free to read online content on Medium and so on and so forth. A whole bunch of blockchain and crypto podcasts, my own, which I'm not going to shill here because I'm trying not to be shilly. This is not late night shopping channel type of content, but there's any number of different flavors of layer one specific or blockchain specific shows. Many have it on financial services shows, on decentralization shows, on developer and techie shows that are purely about education, right? Social media and crypto, Twitter, there be dragons. There's a lot of noise there. There's a lot of shilling there. It's a very busy space. Discord is a place to go and engage with particular projects. Can be very messy. The user experience can be kind of tricky at a time, and other forums are not all the time any better. But all of this is free, right? It's going to be unfiltered. It's going to be probably more challenging early on to have your own opinion on what's quality, what's objective, what's not. And definitely don't use it for investment advice. And this show today is not investment advice, by the way, either. But from that perspective, there's a whole bunch of informal places you can go, and then formal as well, right? If you've got past that initial little bit of empirical experience, you feel like you've got a perspective on what you like, what you don't like, where you think you fit, where you think you found a home. That's when you can then take it to the next level. Not everybody is looking for formal qualifications, but if you're the sort of person that values that, if that's the way that you learn, if you feel like taking some dedicated time, a career break, doing stuff on late nights and weekends, doing on-demand courses, again, like ours or like the ones that are on BTA or on others, there's a whole bunch of different opportunities for that. Also, there's a whole bunch of university courses today now. In the course itself, we can do a breakdown of how to find the top universities around the world that are training people on blockchain. If you're earlier on in your career, right? If you're still young, I'm not saying an undergraduate course in blockchain is something that everybody needs to do. It isn't. But if that's where you want to go, cool. And also, there's a whole bunch of free seminars, right? There are LinkedIn Lives, there are Twitter Spaces, there are any number of protocols that are running free drop-in sessions to talk about their protocols or their ecosystem or their projects that are happening all of the time. And so there's kind of more content than you can possibly consume in a week. But if you've covered off some of these bases, if you're spending a few hours a week on this, you'll very quickly realize you've gone from, I think blockchain's kind of cool, to I have a really strong opinion on this, and this is what I think I'd like to do. And so, in that short amount of time, you've qualified what it is you want to learn. You've got your hands on. You've maybe dabbled in something formal. You may have gone to a hackathon. You may have attended a couple of meetups. Also a great place to go and meet potential potential employers, people who might be your peers and your colleagues in future. You may think that they're completely nuts and that you can't possibly stand being in a room with them for any longer. And if that's the case, at least you learned something there too.
You know, a lot of people have felt that way about me, and I'm still here. So don't let that be a barrier.
I've never felt that way about you, Kris, and I never will.
This is why we get along.
So on to the next bit, getting a job or identifying a role in blockchain. And we teed this up, we foreshadowed this consistently throughout what we said so far, is there is going to be a distinction. There are two relatively clear paths for people entering into this industry who are identifying roles. You are likely to be technical or not. It may be that you're technical or you have technical training in architecture, development, infrastructure management, DevOps, but actually you want a non-technical role. And that's perfectly cool. It may be that you started off non-technical and you'd like to become a developer, a coder, or an architect. And that's a really interesting crossover. But for the sake of this discussion for today, let's assume that there are two slightly pure, slightly divergent paths when you get into this, right? But the good news is there are a number of different roles, technical and non-technical, that exist in a whole bunch of different configurations, a whole bunch of different shapes, right? From the chief technology officer, front-end developers, developing front-end and applications, back-end developers, chain developers, or actually developing the chain code and the protocols and the cryptography underneath these things. Deeply interesting, deeply mathematical and technical stuff. Smart contract developers, right? People who are developing the applications that sit on blockchains that can run and that can hold balances, that can invest, that can manage decentralized autonomous organizations. Right? A super interesting and critically important area of the space. Architects, DevOps managers, infrastructure managers, testing and data, traditional roles across every variation of the web, and security engineers, of course, increasingly, or probably even more so in Web3 than Web2 today. All of these are relatively familiar terminology for roles, but they just happen to have a Web3 spin on them. And so to some extent, you may need to learn a particular protocol, right? If you've got experience with JavaScript, if you've got experience with Golang, if you've got experience with Python, these are some of the languages you can bring in and retrain. If you're working on such an obscure layer one that you had to learn it all from scratch, or if you're a Rust developer, you've got a path in, or the retraining may be less for you, right? It's like if you've learned to fly a Cessna and you suddenly get put in a Bulldog, you can probably fly the two planes without too much difficulty, right? If you've learned to fly in a Cessna and suddenly you're given, the 747-400 to fly, slightly different story, right? And there will be various other crap analogies from me that will be aviation or other themed related, but it's not always a perfect retraining experience, but it's not as hard as you think. And it might be that you choose your path based on those existing hard skills that you've learned. Non-technical, it's literally everything. And this is why I said at the beginning of the show that the barriers to entry for people into Web3 has never been lower and is lower than you think, because there are companies in Web3. There are listed companies in Web3. There are listed mining companies in Web3. You look at Hut 8 in Canada. These are fully regulated, fully listed organizations that have all of the traditional CEO, COO, CFO, chief HR officer, chief data officer, right? Product managers, lawyers, risk managers, treasury managers, marketing managers, community managers, all of these roles that you will find today in IT, in non-blockchain, you will find in blockchain companies or Web3 businesses today. Yes, there is a requirement for you to have some of that skill or some of that context that we talked about before. But all of these exist. If you go onto some of the platforms and look for jobs, you'll find them, right? And they are increasing demand because this scene is only getting larger. The entities behind foundations, the organizations that are responsible for growing the communities behind certain layer ones or layer twos or layer threes or DAOs all have line roles. They all have org structures. And so you can find yourself in them in a relatively traditional way. Some are going to be more plentiful than others, right? There's not going to be 500 technical or social media writers for every project. There might be one or two. And so those commodity or more commoditized roles, there's probably going to be more competition for them. But across the rest of the piece, there's going to be much more white space, much more open opportunity, right? So from that perspective, there are all of the roles. And if you look at who's hiring this is just a snapshot in time. I took this a few months ago. You look on the left-hand side, these are the Web 2 companies. Those that existed, that were incorporated pre, I want to say 2013, 2012, 2013, at the launch of the Satoshi white paper, or 2009. These companies all existed, right? NFL, IBM, Nike, Hulu, Visa, Apple, Stripe, NVIDIA, all hiring for blockchain roles. So you don't even have to leave the comfort of the Web 2 corporate world if you choose to, right? Or there are a number of these companies that are having specific arms or spin-offs within their organization focused on blockchain, cryptocurrency, and Web3. And so within your own organizations, think about whether that's possible or where that might be, and go look for them, because it's there, it's out there. And then on the right-hand side, Web3 companies born into blockchain. I don't want to over jargonize this, but these are organizations that are serve exclusively this space. Exchanges, layer ones, layer twos, foundations, payments businesses, software integrators, banks like Seba, specific projects. These all exist in Web3 and all have, as I said before, all of those requirements for the similar organizational roles as you see in regular companies today. Here's an important part of it. Right, so we talked about hard skills, we talked about retraining, but I think this is an underappreciated topic, Kris, and I want to get your thoughts on this, is that there are so many existing transferable skills that people can bring. Maybe you've only been working for a couple of years, maybe you've been working for 30 years, but the mix of soft skills, hard skills, and domain-specific knowledge that you have is all going to be relevant to these organizations, right?
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. I think to kind of alleviate fears on both sides, you get a lot of folks who are new to the space. Maybe they just got out of school, they're just starting their professional careers. They look at blockchain and they think, boy, there's no role for me there because I'm competing against all these people who've been in the space for a while. I don't have the resume, I don't have the experience. One of the biggest mistakes I see a number of blockchain organizations make is over-indexing on the veterans. And, experience is great, but it means you have a lot of bad habits you have to unlearn first. And on the other side, so much of blockchain for folks who have been in the professional space for a while, like I mentioned earlier, it's not about really gaining a new skill set. It's about learning how to take your existing skill set and apply it differently, apply it in a Web3 world where a lot of the concerns are drastically different from what we're used to. So, for those folks, being able to point back on past success, confidence in certain abilities you have to help contribute, whether those are technical or non-technical skills, those are really worth their weight in gold. If you spent years developing some of these skill sets, keep them, be proud of them. You don't have to throw them out just to move into the Web3 world. In fact, they're more valuable than ever. We really need good creative people who can focus on taking those existing skills and techniques that they've learned and really applying them into this brave new world. So there's room for everybody right now.
100%. And in a world where your tenure in an industry is at this point in time a minuscule part of the overall picture of the hiring process, your ability to identify and value these and understanding what can you bring to a project is super, super important. I think it's also super empowering for the individual. Is remember that it might actually just be that you speak a number of different languages, or that you're mobile, that you're willing to travel, that you've got really great experience of being able to make complex themes simple. That's really, really important, that you're able to work well in remote locations, that you've got great experience with remote-based software for software development tools and so on and so forth. Yes, also domain knowledge, your understanding of regulation, your understanding of finance. User experience is critically important. Product management, talking about this last Friday as well on the This Week in Web3, the requirement for not just technical feasibility, but also commercial viability and desirability from a user's perspective in what we build. That's a vastly underrepresented skill set in this space too. And so these are all things that, as I said, I've seen nightclub managers, I've seen zoologists, I've seen people with political science backgrounds come in and have incredibly successful careers in Web3 and many, many others. So it's as much about the breadth of your transferable skills as your domain-specific experience at this time. So a summary there, right? You've got, your traditional blockchain delivery team, the technical, non-technical roles on a team that's building something. But then also you've got the typical corporate structures or the company structures behind, maybe less so in early stage startups, but certainly in foundations, in venture capital, in some of the bigger layer 1 and layer 2 projects. All of these things exist. And sometimes many times over, because you'll have the delivery organization, you'll have the foundation, you might then have a third different variation on it too. So again, lots and lots out there. Where do we find the roles, right? Everyone's asking that one, where do I go looking? And it's not hard, right? And the answer is it's fairly plentiful. It's plenty open. You don't have to, this stuff doesn't sit behind a paywall. If all you did was type blockchain and global into LinkedIn jobs tomorrow, you'd find hundreds listed. Okay, some of them are more senior, some of them are more junior. There are more nuanced sites, Glassdoor, Monster. There are more, specific to crypto jobs. There are specific to women and kind of female employment specific platforms and places that are more open or that's specifically looking to employ women who are wanting to work in Web3, which is super, super important. Country specific ones, Swiss dev jobs is just one that I kind of pulled out as I was doing a bit of searching. There are so many, right? If you type in to Google blockchain or Web3 jobs, chances are you'll find a whole bunch of these sites pretty quickly. Whether they're legitimate, whether they're trustworthy, there will be some duplication. Also, at the same time, a number of these companies will have jobs available on their own career pages. So layer ones will often have ecosystem jobs too. So the projects and dApps building on their chain, they will also present the jobs for those smaller projects underneath it as well. So there's so much out there already. And then there's a whole bunch of stuff that you can kind of curate yourself. So you can go and talk to some recruiters if you feel like that's something you want to do. You can go to some meetups and events, get on a few Telegram groups, get on a few specific groups saying, look, is anyone hiring for this, that, and the other? Where's a good place to go and find jobs? The more you spend time in the community, the more value you create, the more people are likely to want to then refer you or suggest, oh, this would be perfect for you. It's going to take a little bit of engagement, a little bit of putting yourself out there. But again, it would not take you very long. If whoever is on this stream and I sat down for 15 minutes, chances are we'd be able to find an opening for you very quickly in a number of different locations, remote, not remote, whatever you're looking for, within 15, 20 minutes of Google searching. I'm pretty much guaranteed certain of it.
Absolutely. And one thing I'll throw in there, Anthony, is there is a huge amount of opportunity right now that just isn't on the radar. You don't see it from the surface. And that's because, blockchain is so new and it introduces so many new concerns to an organization looking to go down that path that it takes them a while to figure out, okay, what are the roles and what are those job descriptions and what are the prerequisites? If there's a company that you like, you're excited by their mission, you believe in what they're doing. I've seen a number of students land great jobs, great careers by reaching out and being proactive and saying, look, I don't know if you guys are interested in blockchain, but if you are, here's my skills, here's what I can contribute. And what you see a number of times is, while this company is sitting there internally trying to write the perfect job description, lo and behold, the ideal candidate just falls in their lap, and it's kind of a godsend. So a lot of opportunity out there that's not on the radar that you can find if you're a little proactive as well.
Serendipity and manifestation has a big part of it. I'm certain of it, and that's how I got here, right? Pure serendipity. So I believe it can work for others too. And perfect segue, Kris. It's as if we prepared or rehearsed this ahead of time. We're getting into the applying bit now, right? The tradecraft around what does it take to get past. And this is something, the elevator pitch, you were talking about reaching out to others or going to meetups and so on and so forth. This is the bit that I get probably 5 to 10 of these a week of somebody saying, hey, Anthony, love your content. I really want to work in blockchain and Web3. Can I work at your company? And I was like, I love your energy. I love that you're passionate about what I'm passionate about, but there's almost nothing for me to go on here. And I'm super busy. I have a whole bunch of stuff that I do for my day job, for my side projects, for my family, for my personal life. In the course of the day, I don't have an hour to sit and go through threads of all of these people to understand and unpick and figure out all of the details behind their background, their backstory, their skills, what type of it's too much. And it's not feasible. And it's a little bit unfair on the reader, just sending a kind of a cold request like this. What good looks like for me, and this could be something you send as a direct message. It could be something you put into a Discord channel. It could be something that you go and talk to projects when you're out there at hackathons or events or virtual events even, is showcase what are your skills? What are you interested to do? What impact do you want to have? What role and area do you want to be considered for? it might be that those roles aren't available at the time, but at least you're rehearsing and you're talking about, I have a specific interest in working in legal services or being a legal advisor to startup projects based on my experience of the regulatory environment in Abu Dhabi. I want to be a DApp or an infrastructure manager for layer ones, or I want to be a security manager for this, that, and the other. I would like to work in growth and community management. I would like to be a social media manager, and because here's my stuff, or these are the projects that I love or that I'm contributing to. A little bit of showing that you're already doing it doesn't hurt either. But trying to distill that down into a sentence, 2 sentences is not easy, but it needs to be compelling and it needs to have empathy for the person listening, because they should be curious to say, okay, I'm interested to tell me more, right? The outcome of this shouldn't be, okay, cool, let me just ask you 6 more questions to figure out the gaps that you haven't, of the things you haven't told me in my own time without knowing you from Adam or Eve. And then we'll figure out what to do with you. That's just not practical in the way things are today. But if you spend a little bit of time crafting this, and there's more on this in the training course, that'll help you. As you go through preparing your resume, assuming at this point, the next thing is, here's a little bit more about me. Go check out my resume. This could be just your LinkedIn profile, right? A number of times, the first touch point that people have with you is your socials, right? So it might be that you don't prepare a resume at all. So help your LinkedIn profile look a little bit like this, right? People want to know how to find you. They want to see that elevator pitch, right? If you have a bio that says something like making the impossible possible since 1984, that's not really going to help the audience. And that's not going to show empathy to the person listening. It could be that you choose a number of keywords. It could be that you have a scoring system to say, what out of 5 is your experience of certain domains, technical, geographical, industry areas. It could be a whole bunch of stuff, but your keywords and some visualization of your skills might be useful. Then you got all the usual stuff, right? What projects have you done? What work have you done? What's your work experience like? What are some of the things that you've done on the side projects, things you contribute to, even if you're not getting paid for it? If you can demonstrate you're actually doing some of this stuff on the side, that goes a long way to building up or credentializing stuff that you've already done without it necessarily being something you've been paid to do. No one really worries about that as much. It's more about, what is the person in front of me going to show, and what are they going to be able to achieve in my organization? I said 75%, 80% of the people that I've hired into teams have had no blockchain experience before, or have not been working in the role that I'm hiring them for explicitly. And so that's super important. Increasingly over time, people are going to get more experience and so on and so forth. But that for now is still an open field. Your hard and soft skills still matter. Back to what we talked about, transferable skills from before. Being able to demonstrate that. Also, personal interests always matter, but that might be with a specific flavor to it. And kind of final point on anything relating to your resume is, always demonstrate or show empathy towards the person you're sending this to. You should never send the same CV or resume to the same person, or the same resume to 2 different people. It should always be tailored. It should always be customized. It should always be prioritized to the role you're looking for, the company or the organization you're looking to work for. Show empathy to what they are looking for. Tweak your story. Don't misrepresent yourself, but make it easy for somebody to quickly understand what from your background fits best. And then getting into the prep, right? There's a whole bunch of topics, and interviews can go a whole bunch of different ways. Right? I've interviewed others. I've been interviewed for a whole bunch of different roles, and there's a few commonalities here that are always going to happen. Right? There's your work, what you know about the company you're hiring for. Maybe people are going to ask you some questions about the competition. So, who do you think our biggest threats are, or who do you think are our most likely collaborators in this particular space? Why us? Why not somewhere else? Which other organizations are you considering? Right? And you can choose how open you want to be with that. The technology is always going to come up. What is it about blockchain, Web3, decentralized applications, zero knowledge proofs, security, whatever it is that you're applying for? What is it about this particular domain that you're most interested in? Maybe they're going to ask you, who do you follow? Who do you find is a really good source of information on this? What did you like? What's the last post they put out that you found interesting? Understanding how curated is your private reading on this particular topic. Again, to demonstrate your own passion, your own research. Bring me some great examples. Give me a case study of a particular application or a particular layer one that you think is going to be successful and why, or a project that's underrated. Also, prepare the interviewer, right? Prepare about that person. What have they done? What have they posted on? What are they interested in? Right? Not necessarily to score extra brownie points, but as much as anything to show empathy to who they are, what they like, How do they talk when they present certain ideas? Are they talking technically or non-technically? What are some of the projects they've worked on in the past? If you can illustrate with relatable examples and be able to build rapport with somebody who has a different management style, a different presentational style, a different interview style to the person you last interviewed with, that's going to help. So there's a whole bunch of stuff. And again, this is just the high level, but things that you can definitely prepare for an interview. And again, going a level deeper, some more stuff that I've definitely used these questions in an interview before. There's a whole bunch of open source content out there on Medium and a whole bunch of other channels of questions you might expect to answer in a job interview. But these are just some of the ones that I use or that I've used before that I find compelling because it tests the passion of the individual, the depth of their knowledge, the way that they respond to questions. So why are you interested in this space? Right? People come into blockchain and Web3 for a bunch of reasons, because it's innovative, because they're a libertarian at heart, because they have a background in kind of complementary domains, cryptography, development, infrastructure management, cloud computing, whatever it might be. Who inspires you? Right? Who are the people that you follow? Who would you recommend that I follow, and why? Right? It's a really soft question. It's a non-technical question, but very quickly you'll hear the passion of the individual or not from how they talk about who they follow. Trends, obviously. What do you think are the main things that are going to impact our business in the next little while? How able are you to look forward, even with an industry that's moving at pace? Why us? What do you bring to the team? Pretty basic questions. But then also, how do you manage conflict? And give me some examples of difficult situations, because the one thing that's particularly challenging about working in this industry is everything's remote, everything's fast-paced, a lot of things are technical, people often use shorthand, and there's very, very diverse backgrounds and very, very short timelines in what we do. So expect conflict, expect chaos up to a point, but help us understand, how do you engage with that? Right? What does that mean to you? How have you managed that in the past? Right?
And I'll throw in real quick on those 6 questions. I think it's interesting. For those of you who don't know Anthony, this is someone who works deeply in this space, has built a lot of teams, spends a lot of time reviewing and conversing with candidates. Notice when he put together a list of the 6 big questions he's going to want to ask someone, how many of these are technical? And it's absolutely 0. These are all non-technical, big picture questions. And I think that's very interesting coming from someone who works deeply in the space, 24/7, every single day of the year.
Yeah, for sure. This is about fit and personality. Also, at the same time, we have technical tests for people who are going to be architecting or developing code. So those questions will be dealt with in separate interview formats. And again, in the longer course, we talk about what are some of the different formats for interviews, what are some of the different stages and things that you might expect to do. So you will get homework, you will get something to QA, you will get a smart contract to go build, et cetera, et cetera. There's some very, very deliberate, very specific technical training that you can get to do as well. But you don't get to go past that if you can't answer these ones too, in my book, because this is also talks to what kind of colleague, what type of community advocate are you going to be, based on how much you care about what we as a project are doing. And that's going to matter for sure. So what now? We're 50 minutes in. We've covered a whole bunch of hopefully really useful, hopefully helpful framing, and hopefully you still believe that the barriers are relatively low. This is the final, slightly shilly bit of the show, but if this has whetted your appetite, if you believe that there's still a little bit more, a little bit deeper you want to go, this is where you can find it out. So this is the course that Kris and I put together. This is 100% created from fresh. This has never been presented anywhere else. It's never been available on any other platforms. We created this ourselves. We went through the agenda. We talked about what are the biggest questions that people are struggling with when working in this industry or when wanting to work in the industry. Right? We'll park the blockchain 101, the technical training, the architecture training. That's elsewhere. Right? And I want Kris to talk about that in a second, but specifically about getting into the industry, being able to scale or grow the projects you work on, or being able to improve the delivery of those when you're there and in the midst. Those are things that we felt had been never presented before. So in 5 hours, which is a relatively short amount of time, we put that whole course together. It's available on Blockchain Training Alliance /products/growth in blockchain on demand with hyphens in the middle. I'll put hyperlinks on this particular live stream. It is recorded, so you guys can come back to it later. It's also going to be under my links. If you go to my profile on LinkedIn, you'll see my links, and you've got training and podcast. Click that. You'll see a link tree with links to all of this stuff as well, so you can go find that out. And if you decide that there's more, it's not just about growth, or it's not just about learning and getting a job in Web3 and blockchain. Kris, there's other stuff on the BTA platform, right? There's other stuff that's come out recently. What else can people find on the platform?
Absolutely. Yeah. I'll go back to something you talked about a little earlier. That, one of the first decisions you want to make if you're getting involved in blockchain is, hey, do I want to be technical or not? If you're someone technical and that's the path you want to continue down, great. If you're someone non-technical and those are skills you want to learn, there literally has never been a better time. There's so many great learning resources out there. But again, that's not a requirement. If you're just kind of new to the space and wondering, hey, what does all this look like? I'm not even sure which one of those two paths is exciting to me. One of the best courses we offer for folks in that position is our Blockchain Solutions Architecture class. Don't let the name throw you off. It's really going to help you understand the what about blockchain. What is it? How does it work? What's going on behind the scenes? And then, Anthony, what I love about this course that we've put together, we're talking about here today, is this kind of steps in and answers the second question, which is, so what? Now that you have this knowledge, what do you do with it? Why is it important? How do you go apply it? So I think that's a really, really good path for folks just getting started. And I'll throw out there, if you're interested in all this and you're just not sure what the right first step is, reach out, send us an email, shoot me a message on LinkedIn or via email. I'm always happy to make time and talk to folks. Blockchain is very contagious, and the more you get interested in it, the more that starts to infect the people around you. And this is kind of one of those scenarios where a rising tide lifts all ships. We really can all learn and all win together. So don't be apprehensive. The water's warm. Jump on in and come join the party.
Love that. Love that, Kris. The water is certainly not warm if you're going to jump into water out here in Dublin, but in the Web3 world, the water is always warm. And again, full disclosure, you do not have to pay for any training or any content or any courses to be able to get into this space, right? This is not a gateway, or we are not the gatekeepers to roles in blockchain and Web3. There's plenty of open source content that we kind of highlighted over the course of today's show. But if you like the way that we talk about it, if you like the way Kris and I are presenting the ideas, or if you want to learn from the experiences that we've had, this is what we've put up there. We've put a lot of hours into the preparation, into the content creation, into the recording and editing. You don't want to know how I tried to fit a green screen into this tiny loft room, but we did. So we believe that it's fair value for our experience, and it's going to help you guys get on the way. If it's not for you, we're not going to judge. We want to see everyone succeed in this space. So just wanted to be clear on that one, that there's plenty of different avenues for everybody. And before we get into the Q&A, I promised you a discount code, and here it is. If you go in and you sign up for the course, first 100 people, if you use the discount code 2beards, that could be uppercase, lowercase. The system is smart enough to recognize the difference. But if you put in the discount code 2beards, first 100 people signing up using that discount code will get $50 off the total cost of the course. So I think that's about 20% off. So that's hopefully a good discount for you guys. Appreciate you joining this, my first ever hosted LinkedIn Live. It's not the first one I've been on, but something to get things going, to get a few more people interested in the course, to get some feedback from you guys to see whether you like it, whether you value it. And if that doesn't work, just send the guys at BTA an email. Sometimes the discount codes take a little bit of time to go live, but by the end of today, or hopefully by tomorrow, that discount code will be live. So check it out. That's available there for $50 off. And looking forward to getting feedback and some guidance from you guys on whether you like the course. And with that, it is time for the Q&A. Now, I've seen a whole bunch of different questions spiraling down the chat box as we've been going through this. So I'm going to try and pickle back to some of them. But for anybody who's still here, now is the time to reissue your question at the bottom, because I probably wasn't writing them down as I was talking. So anybody who has questions going through here, please now do put them in the chat, and I'll read them out. Kris and I can go through them as best we can. I think one of the more common ones was certainly, is this being recorded? The answer to that is absolute yes. So this should be available on LinkedIn for as long as LinkedIn Live lasts on LinkedIn. I can't remember for sure. Question from Michael. He asked about what would be some of the Telegram or Discord channels that you can join. I mean, the real talk is that there are billions of them. And maybe I should segment or categorize some of the different channels that are available, right? So Discord, Telegram, there will be a channel for pretty much every layer one blockchain, right? So Polkadot, Ethereum, Cardano, all of those will have their own Telegram groups that are moderated, and will be presenting announcements. We'll be looking at responses to questions, et cetera, et cetera. Most of the decentralized applications, dApps, games, projects on those layer ones or layer twos will have their own Discords and Telegrams. Some of the accelerators will have their own. Tribe in Singapore, Outlier Ventures in the UK, VCs, A16Z, all of these guys will have their own Telegram and Discord. So you can join more Discords and more Telegrams. It is a fire hose of information. What I would say is be selective, right? Do the learning part up front, the empirical learning part up front, to figure out, who do I care about? Who do I really want to follow? Same is true of crypto Twitter to some extent. There is more than you can possibly consume. So try a few out. If you like it, great. If you don't like it, drop out. Go try someone else's. The cadence and the pace of the content that's created there is relentless. So just be a bit mindful. What's your experience of Telegrams and Discord groups, Kris?
Oh, I mean, it's funny. The world of blockchain, just over the last few years, it's become a lot like medicine. It's gotten so very specialized. One of the things that got me seduced by blockchain to begin with is it's not just technology. Blockchain is this really interesting intersection between technology and economics and human psychology and motivation and decentralized power structures and other emerging technologies like AI and IoT and public policy and socialization. So, I guess my advice is, find that part, get educated a little bit, and find that part that just really interests you. What you're going to find is there's a little sub community there. There's going to be Slack channels and Discord servers and subreddits and, YouTube content creators really kind of hyper focusing in some of these areas. It's getting to be far too broad of a topic for any of us to be generalists anymore. And, to me, that's kind of what makes it exciting.
That's a nice point, actually, on the content creators, that there are layer one or blockchain specific content creators who interview a bunch of the different projects, who try and do a good job of condensing down some of that kind of volume of information into the stuff that they think you should care about. So that's a good steer.
Well, and this is not a question, but I did catch this one in the comments. Carmen said the best podcasts are from Anthony. And I do have to agree. I thought that was a very astute comment and deserved pointing out. So thank you, Carmen.
Thank you, Carmen. I appreciate the love. I have a very unique view on the podcast that I create, because I've made the hardest to edit and most difficult to record show in the world, being that it usually has about 20 people per episode, and I had to edit and record all of that down. But I have been trying to create a body of work specifically around what does it take to build a blockchain community in a whole bunch of countries that don't get as much visibility. So if you care about blockchain in Japan, Canada, UAE, Malta, Brazil, Israel, Germany, Netherlands, places that get less visibility, maybe that's a show for you, but maybe not for everybody. Luca has asked the question, how come the majority of companies and startups still want experienced product managers with experience in Web3? I mean, that's what they'll put on the roll. They'll ask for it, but that's not a guarantee that it precludes you from getting the job. Product managers are in short supply in this particular space. I would say at the same time, engineering-led startups will probably appreciate product management less than they should. But a good product manager who's got empirical experience, maybe not career experience working in this space, your technical or your transferable skills of product management are still as applicable in Web3 as they are in not. And so don't let that stop you. It might mean that you get filtered more often, but it isn't. It certainly isn't a prerequisite. So don't give up hope on that one, Luca.
Yeah, and I would throw in there, keep in mind, again, this is all so new. It's such an incredibly new space. The enterprise world is still catching up to blockchain in many ways. So don't read too much what you see in those job descriptions, what the requirements are. I mean full respect when I say this, but there's a very good chance that whoever wrote that job description knows less about blockchain than you do. So, don't think just because you don't meet every single one of those bullet points exactly that you're not a good fit. There is such a huge skills gap. Go on LinkedIn any day. I know Anthony mentioned this. Do a search for blockchain as a keyword in a job search. You're going to see several thousand new jobs being posted every day. It's just an enormous volume.
For sure. Got another question here from an anonymous user. What skills stand out to Web3 hirers? That's a really good question because I think it depends hirer to hirer. Always tailor it to the project that you're applying to. So if you know that they're particularly focused on a particular domain or a particular industry or decentralized finance or gaming, maybe they're a DAO, maybe they're a technical project, try to make yourself sound as interesting and compelling to them as you can. That could be your transferable skills. It could be calling out specific projects you've done, even if that project was for 2 weeks long. Saying that I've worked at company X for 6 years is less meaningful than saying I've worked at company Y for 1 year, and here's the 2 or 3 really discrete pieces of work that I've done that should really resonate with a project that you've done. You could talk about what hackathons you've attended. You could talk about what cryptos you hold if you want to. You don't have to disclose your portfolio. You could talk about some of the hands-on experience you've done, some of the DAOs that you're maybe a member of. You can get to some very granular levels that might just be like, oh, that's kind of interesting. I didn't know that DAO. I'd love to hear that person talk about it, and maybe use that as an in to help describe their experience. Again, I would want to see a mix of transferable skills, technical skills, domain-specific knowledge, and something that just shows you've taken time to learn about the project or the person or the team that's hiring for the role you're interested in. Because again, you should never send the same CV twice.
Absolutely. Anthony, tell me if you feel the same way, but for me personally, if I'm interviewing 2 different candidates and, one of them looks great on paper, got a lot of good relevant experience, meets a lot of the requirements, all that. And then candidate number 2 maybe isn't as strong, doesn't have quite as much experience, but, says something in that interview and I walk away and I go, I never thought of that. That's a very interesting idea. I am always far more interested in having follow-up conversations with that person who's thinking outside the box and causing me to look at the space in a different way than someone who's just come in and checked all the right check marks off on a list of requirements. I don't know. Maybe you're the same.
Love that. And I think the analogy here is that no one has trained for this industry. Right? There's no formal education, or there wasn't. That's changing now, but at the time there was no formal education for. So whoever comes into this is going to have to learn new stuff as they go along anyway. No one is the finished article in this space. So I would rather take the person with the intellectual curiosity and the drive over the person who's got historical experience in something every day of the week, because we're still relearning our jobs week in, week out with this stuff. So that would be my take on it. Question from Jashan here, if I'm presenting that correctly. A lot of big exchanges have fired people recently due to market conditions. I know the blockchain universe is quite vast, but is there still job security in this field? That's a really good question. And I think the answer is probably not. But at the same time, there is constant opportunity in this field. So if you're coming into Web3 thinking, okay, great, I'm going to go and join an exchange, or I'm going to go and join a project, or I'm going to go and join a foundation, and I'm going to have a job for life, or I'm going to be still working there 20 years from now, you're sadly mistaken. A number of reasons. Those projects may go under. Those exchanges may get replaced by bigger and better ones. They may get bought out. Also, if you look at a number of the mission statements of the layer 1 foundations, their job is to become fully decentralized within the next 3 to 5 years. So it is their business to not be in business 5 years from now, which is a fascinating outlook on a business or on an organization, right? We won't be here. Your job will not exist 5 years from now. Your job is to undo and to make irrelevant the job you do now. But in doing that, and in the experience you gain from that, you'll then have access to the ecosystem or other projects, or you'll have context that will make you very hireable into other projects that do still need people, or you can. It's equally possible to make a living from grants and funding to support the ecosystem. Every layer 1 has a grant based system. Most of those then have on-chain governance, so you can propose a project and delivery. You can work as a freelancer in this space if you've got context and intimacy with that particular system or that particular software or technology. So the concept of job security should be challenged in and of itself.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I'd throw in there, in my quarter century working in the IT space, a lot of folks do get concerned when the economy starts to go down. I personally have found for those folks working in technology, those sometimes are the best years for us, because when you're doing good, when the economy's growing, when it's easy for you to go out there and make a profit and grow your company, it's easier not to focus so much on efficiency. But when times get lean, efficiency means everything. And at the end of the day, technology, more often than not, is an efficiency play, and that includes blockchain and Web3. So ironically, while the rest of the market may be taking a bit of a dip, I fully expect to see opportunity in this space continue to grow and flourish. So now might be a better time than a year ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago to go out there and make that switch and find something that makes you happy.
Love that. And that's 25 years in IT speaking, Kris, and that's something that most people probably don't have the benefit of experience of. So really appreciate you chiming in with that one. Yawa's come in here with kind of question. This is a really interesting one. What about senior marketing roles? I'm a marketing director in an FMCG company, but Web3 roles demanding a major position or salary cut. What would you advise for me to find a better balance? So I'm on a good package working in Web2 for an FMCG. And the roles that I found so far in marketing are a step down. My take on this one from the roles that I've worked in is there are senior marketing director roles that are out there, that major projects, layer ones, dApps, etc., that are funded to the tune of decent sized organizations, maybe who've raised 10, 15, 20 million plus, or foundations who've got billion-dollar budgets. They will pay top dollar for top talent. If you're working for a vanilla startup, doesn't matter if you're in Web3, Web2, Web1, those guys don't have the budget to pay top dollar, but the packages will often look different. It'll be a mix maybe of a smaller fiat currency kind of dollar base, but maybe you'll have equity, maybe you'll have tokens. And then your question is, how much do I value that those tokens are going to go up over time? Will they 5x? Will they 10x? It might be a more attractive proposition than getting equity in a Fortune 500 that's trundling along at 3% or 5% or 8%. It may also go to zero and it may be worthless to you. But how do you feel about that? Also, how do you feel about where you live? What is the regulatory environment related to being paid in crypto? That's non-trivial as well. But I would say, if you haven't found the right role, or it feels like too much of a step down, or the package doesn't quite fit yet, keep looking.
Yeah, and I'd throw in that, marketing, to me, that's a very interesting role, because a lot of what marketing is, in my opinion, in this new space is an insurance policy. Look, if you're an organization and you're diving into these blockchain waters and you're hiring Web3 developers and you're paying them to write applications and you're making a big investment to the space, do you want all that to fail because you're not in a position to communicate this additional or new value you're able to give to your customers or your end users? I sure wouldn't want to make that kind of investment and then in the end have the only reason I fail to be because I couldn't communicate that value proposition well. So to me, having someone who really understands marketing and branding and communication and engaging with that non-technical user base, that's worth their weight in gold. So maybe just keep looking, find someone who really understands that and appreciates the value of your skill set and how rare someone in your role is, a marketing executive who understands and is passionate about Web3. You're kind of a unicorn. Keep looking. Someone will appreciate that.
Relatable content based on recent conversations, Kris, for sure. Next question here from Ali is it important or necessary to get every blockchain network experience like Ethereum, Solana, Algorand, Stacks in order to get a remote job in this space? My immediate reaction to that would be absolutely not. There are very many people who are just focused primarily on being Solidity devs or Rust devs. It might be that actually there's transferability. So if you're a Rust developer, you can then maybe flex your skills between Polkadot, Near, and Solana. If you have more experience in JavaScript, that may lend you towards certain places. If you've had to learn and retrain in Solidity, you're primarily anchored to Ethereum, but anywhere that has an EVM chain or has Ethereum compatibility, you can probably spend time working there. What I would say is, from a practical perspective, see where your existing skills can be applied and have a play around to see where you feel comfortable or where you feel there's demand. Those larger chains which have got larger ecosystems, there's likely to be more opportunity, but that's not to say that you can't grow from a small base in a rapidly growing ecosystem, one of the newer chains or one of the newer ecosystems, and still have an incredibly successful career. In fact, that scarcity of talent may work in your advantage too. But you absolutely don't have to learn multiple blockchains before you can get a valuable role.
No, in fact, I would go as far as to say if I hire you in a technical role to work in blockchain today, there is an overwhelmingly good chance that 5 years from now, everything you know today is irrelevant. It's in the past. So for me, and I can only speak for me, maybe Anthony agrees, I am much less concerned with finding someone who knows certain things. What I want to find is someone who shows me they can learn, unlearn, and relearn quickly and stay up to date with these things as they change and evolve. So, don't show me what you know, show me your capacity for change. And now you're speaking my language.
Nice. We got a question here. My background is in management consulting and project management. Me too. I've been struggling to find remote positions on popular jobs boards. I'm interested in enrolling for the course, blah, blah, blah. I can reach out about questions. Feel free to reach out to Kris and I if you have questions along the way. You will see very, very many roles saying background in management consultancy, desirable, experience in Web3 for bonus points. So my take there is the management consultancy skill set teaches you to be analytical. It teaches you to be comfortable with quantitative analysis. It teaches you to understand the market and market dynamics. It teaches you to be diligent, to work hard, to explain technical concepts with empathy and explain hard things in simple ways, to represent information, to work in teams remotely and globally. Those are the long form of saying management consultancy. Or project management, right? Project management and product management, agile delivery. These are all skill sets that are in desperate need in our industry. Now, if the rest of your CV doesn't look quite Web3 enough, or that you haven't got the empirical or hands-on experience, or the kind of the extra stuff we've been talking about today to put on your CV to get you through that first paper shuffle, that now might be the time to expand a little bit to kind of help offset what should be a strong underlying core transferable skills with something you can talk about before you jump in. So that would be my take there, but those are all positives for me.
Yeah, I'll kind of go back to something I said earlier. You see this, especially on the enterprise side. There, not to say there are none, but there are very, very few use cases for using something like blockchain in a purely internal fashion. So most of the time when we sit down and we build something in blockchain, it's my organization and Anthony's and yours and someone else's all teaming up. And that means we have all the same project management concerns, but in a much bigger and more diverse environment. So, what do we do if you and I want to work together organizationally? You've got your own very successful, well-documented, trusted change management process, and I've got mine. But now we realize that those two processes are different and incompatible. What are we going to do when that first change request comes in? So again, someone who can really kind of think outside the box and say, all right, how do I take all these existing skills I already have, but apply them in this world where the concerns are completely different? That's the real golden resource that everyone is looking for. So, folks in that management consulting background, your skill sets are welcome. We just need someone to really be creative and dynamic with those skills and think about how can we apply them to maximal benefit in this, hyper dynamic new environment.
For sure. And bear in mind that when you come in, it's going to be a little bit less structured than maybe you're used to. You're not going to be handed projects and then be told to go and run with them. There's an awful lot more autonomy. There's an awful lot more self-starting required. But that's something that, as long as you appreciate that coming in, shouldn't be too much of a barrier once you're in. Couple of we're getting some really good questions today, by the way. This one's come up a few times, but I wanted to kind of just very briefly touch on it. Is blockchain a fundamental within the metaverse? Or is blockchain required, or is blockchain mandatory for metaverse propositions today? I find that one a really interesting one, because we recorded a podcast 2 weeks ago, week and a half ago now, specifically on blockchain and the metaverse. And I asked a bunch of people working in Web3, what is the metaverse? What does it stand for? And in none of their description did they talk about blockchain. Now, if you're looking at creating remote virtualized experiences where people can exchange value, information, ideas, and collaborate, Underneath that is the requirement for data exchange, value exchange, identity management in a remote and decentralized way. In most cases, in many cases. That's not to say that there aren't going to be centralized metaverse propositions as well, where you log in with your email and password, you zoom around in a virtual world, and you collaborate with others. Right? That's called Minecraft today. Or there are many others like it that are virtual collaboration platforms that you might not call a metaverse. My take that there are benefits from having interoperable digital assets or proofs that can credentialize others, that can represent your experience, that can represent your vote or your stake in another person to vote or contribute or play on your behalf, that blockchain technology enables. But my sense is blockchain is not mandatory for the metaverse, and the metaverse as it is today is still a very, very nascent term in terms of what it actually means to us and what that could be. Right? We're super, super early on that. To me, blockchain is not mandatory, but it provides a number of capabilities that are complementary in the same way that virtual reality, augmented reality, and cloud servers do.
Yeah, this is another area of blockchain that I find fascinating. We talk about blockchain in the context of all these other emerging technologies, AI, big data, VR, the metaverse. When in reality, if you look at a lot of these projects, blockchain tends to sit there as a foundational layer that these other technologies are built on top of. And very much like you just said, Anthony, it's not a requirement, but it is a commonality. So you are going to see blockchain quite frequently if you're just working in that general emerging technology space. Now, from the outside looking in, that tends to be pretty transparent. For example, if you think about Twitter, tell someone why Twitter is a useful platform. Well, it's because I can send a message directly to some of the most influential or powerful people on earth, as long as I constrain my thoughts down to 240 characters or less. Nowhere in that description did I have to mention that, hey, all this is built on the internet. Isn't that great? And I think we're going to see a similar trajectory with blockchain. It's going to be this very important foundational component. But the folks from the outside looking in probably aren't going to know it's there in a lot of cases. It's just going to quietly add some additional value.
Nice. And if you're interested in the metaverse, you should equally be interested in the idea of decentralized applications or decentralized platforms, because what the metaverse enables in terms of exclusivity, in terms of pseudonymity, in terms of accessibility, in terms of being able to create things and break down boundaries that we have in physical or centralized systems. There's a whole bunch of learnings of what are the capabilities that the decentralized web can bring to the jobs that we've always tried to do. That may be interesting. Right? You don't have to call it a metaverse, and you also don't have to call it blockchain. But your curiosity around the why and the what should follow you from the metaverse into decentralization and blockchain, because in that you're going to find context or meaning that you can then apply. Do I want to put a career behind this, or is this still just something that I don't believe in, or I don't think is ready, or I'm not prepared to jump there. It's too early. Another question we've got here is question from another anonymous LinkedIn user. Where do you find good crypto hackathons? And I think that one's probably in the same bucket as how do I find Discord servers or which Telegram groups to join. There will be hackathons on every single main blockchain platform. They'll do hacker houses, they'll do events, they'll host their own conferences every quarter. There will be independent hackathons, events, things like Consensus, ETHCC that kind of tours the world. Accelerators will have their own hackathons. Your local community, your local blockchain meetups, your local accelerators in your country will be hosting hackathons as well. With this, it's trying to figure out what's my entry point. Am I going to enter because I have a particular layer one blockchain that I'm most passionate about? Or is it that I have a particular organization that I'm interested to follow? Is there a particular app that's running a hackathon? Is there a particular theme? Maybe it's NFTs or decentralized finance or gaming. And how do I go find out about what's the easiest place to get that? No hackathon is the same as the other. And I think, honestly speaking, no one hackathon is better than another either. Maybe if you're entering a team, the rewards might be different, or there may be grants or funding available to you. But that's also true if you don't join a hackathon at the same time. So keep an open mind and try and figure out through what lens are you interested in a hackathon. And that might help you make the choice. But there is definitely no shortage.
Yeah, and I would say, my experience, just meetup.com has been an incredible resource. You find in a lot of communities now, there are these small little pools of folks interested in blockchain and crypto and decentralization that are starting to form. And to me, a lot of the value of hackathons or any of these other events is actually just the personal connections that you make. And we've kind of forgot this in a post-COVID world. But meeting people face to face in three-dimensional space, that's pretty awesome. Let's not give that up. And a lot of the connections that you make, if you're looking to dive in and get a career in this space, can really be instrumental in enabling that. And this is one of those areas for opportunity. If you check a resource like Meetup and there isn't that group, start it, because that's going to look really good to any potential employer or project team you might talk to.
Big time. Love that one. Here's a good one from Mariana. What are the biggest mistakes candidates do when applying for Web3 jobs? And I think we probably talked to some of those today, but I mean, if I list them off the top of my head, one is the contextless elevator pitch, right? Not being able to show empathy to the person you're sending something to. Being compelling in understanding why are you relevant, or what is it you have to offer that organization would be important too. Not tailoring your CV, right? Again, sending the same CV twice, or assuming that a CV that would have worked for Coca-Cola or Pfizer or any of the other kind of large FMCGs is going to work in Web3. Present something curious without being kitschy or without trying to over egg it. Just do your research, understand the project, join some of the sessions, listen to some of their YouTube content, learn the project before you apply, because that's going to help you understand what are they working on today, what are the ecosystem doing, what do they value. Context and empathy, I think, are the two, or lack thereof, would be the two biggest mistakes. Again, then it comes down to a little bit to interview craft. You may not be able to answer all the questions well, and that's just tough luck. If you didn't answer a question well on the day, you get the wrong interviewer. That's just bad luck, and maybe it wasn't meant to be. But also at the same time, there is no shortage of roles and no shortage of places. Don't give up just because you get a no from one place. There's 100 other yeses waiting for you. Just keep plugging.
Yeah, and this one kind of resonates personally with me. I mentioned when I was explaining my background, before I got involved in education, I spent a number of years in the consulting space. And what really got me passionate about education was the number of times where I heard someone say, Kris, I would love to be able to do what you do, what your team does. I would love to be able to do these technical things. I'm just not smart enough. And that always rubbed me the wrong way. Here we are in this field where we have this huge shortage of talent. We really need a number of diverse thinkers from interesting and eclectic backgrounds. And you have all these people just telling themselves before they even give it a shot that they're not going to clear that bar. And that's why I really wanted to focus on education, to show people that, yes, there is room in the world of technology generally, and blockchain specifically, for everybody who wants to be a part of it. So I would say the biggest mistake I see candidates making is taking themselves out of the pool before they even become candidates. The right fit is out there. Right. You just got to look hard enough. And the longer it takes, usually the sweeter the reward you get. But do not discredit yourself. Whatever you have to add and contribute, I promise you, it's valuable in this blockchain Web3 space.
Somebody needs to clip those last 30 seconds and just play that every morning as like a morning mantra. If I had you telling me that every morning, Kris, at the beginning of my day, I feel like I would have achieved twice in my lifetime already, or I'd at least be feeling twice as good about it and about myself. So thank you very much for the Monday motivation.
It's kind of, I tell my dogs that every morning and they still haven't gotten a job. So who knows? Maybe it's not great advice.
We've probably got time for one more question. We're coming up to the hour and a half mark, Kris. I thought we would do this for an hour, but we've actually had like 40 minutes worth of Q&A content, which is really, really cool.
This is awesome.
Thank you to everybody who's come in with questions. And also the comment section is answering its own questions, and people are kind of going back and forth in there. So thank you to everybody interacting and kind of bringing ideas and recommendations in there too. That's really awesome. A bit of a tangential one, but I feel like this is still one that's worth having a go at. The question from Deepak is, what would be interesting to know is how blockchain startups do really get investor confidence given that everyone is still experimenting and learning on the go. So how do these organizations raise capital? How do they get confidence from investors despite still having a relatively small user base? And I think my take on this one is that the VCs or investor capital coming into blockchain at this point in time is still quite diverse, right? These are not going to JP Morgan and traditional big banks. There are VCs that understand this space. They understand the technology stack. They understand the gaps. They understand where infrastructure is needed. They understand where tooling is needed. They understand particular differentiators for dApps or projects, and they have a read already on the industry. Yes, they are possibly going to ask for certain metrics, such as how many users or how many active users you have, how much value locked or how much contribution do you have to your project already, how many integrations have you done at this particular point in time. So, and that's going to differ from one to another. One VC may come on board and say, you know what, or an angel at this point may come and say, it's 100K's worth of funding for you to do this. I back this. I understand it. If you can deliver it technically, you're good to go. Others will say, I like this, but I want to see you get the first users on board, or I want to see you get a certain amount of technical milestones or a certain number of customers on the platform before I'm able to fund you further. Those burdens of proof will differ, but it's not the same burden of proof as the I want to say the kind of the Web 2 or the pre-blockchain VC world. There's a lot of capital in the space. There's a lot of funding. There's a lot of grants that are available, even just to demonstrate and prove that doesn't even have to come from a VC. In the course itself, we talk about the number of different sources of capital. VCs are just one of them, right? And there are probably about 10, maybe even more, in terms of the ability to fund a development team to build something novel that can prove success and scale upwards. So I would say it's not as linear an approach to funding and success as maybe you might think.
Yeah, I'll throw a couple thoughts in there. Granted, I'm not an investor. I don't play in that space. So, keep in mind that free advice is always worth the price, oftentimes less. With that being said, I one of the keys I look for, when it comes to your idea is, can you tell me why your idea is a good idea without using the word blockchain? Just like I can tell you why Twitter might be an interesting social media site, and I don't have to mention that it's built on the internet. So many times you hear people saying, hey, we're going to be the XYZ of blockchain. We're going to be the Amazon of blockchain, the Facebook of blockchain. Well, if you're just trying to copy what someone else has already done, not to say you don't have a good idea, but, maybe go back and just double check. But above and beyond all that, again, I always look back at history. And if I look at the history of Web 1, Web 2, I see this very clear and distinct pattern that it is not the first one there who wins. It's the one who has the best team. So Amazon was not the first company that was, selling books or exploring e-commerce in the early days of the internet. eBay was not the internet's first auction site. YouTube was not the first place where users could go and upload their home videos. All these guys came around later, but they had a rock solid team, and that's why they became the titans that they are. So if I were an investor and I stayed at a Holiday Inn Express last night, I would be much more concerned with looking at the team you put together and the dynamics they have, rather than just what's in the pitch deck alone.
Love that, Kris. And with that, we're going to close the show. We've done an hour and a half of a LinkedIn Live. I said I thought we'd get an hour out of this, maybe a little bit less. We managed to continue for an hour and a half. So thank you to everybody for coming in with questions, with comments, for shouting out, for helping each other out in the chat as well. Kris, huge shout out to you for joining us, for being part of this, for helping me to see the potential of converting what we talk about every day into something that could become a more formal training course. That's something that we could actually put out there that people might value, that people might consider as their entry point, or their accelerator into Web3. So if you guys haven't seen that or forgotten this or have joined us late, please wheel back a little bit up to just before the 1 hour. Kris and I have developed a dedicated 10 things they don't tell you about growth in blockchain course, helping people specifically who are interested to get formal training on understanding how to learn, how to get a job, how to accelerate and grow their projects, and how to improve blockchain technical delivery once they're actually building. Thank you, Kris. Thank you, Blockchain Training Alliance, for making it happen. Thank you for all of the technical support when I've been trying to fiddle around with green screens behind me throughout this whole process. And thank you to everybody kind of providing feedback on the course. open to any questions you guys have. Please feel free to connect to myself and Kris on LinkedIn. Please do ask us questions about the content. Please do ask us questions about what else we're working on, questions that you have about blockchain. That's what we're here for. And we're here to elevate others. We're here to help more people get in and get excited about this particular technology in an objective way. If it's not for you, that's cool too. If this isn't relevant for you now, that's great also, but at least you tried, at least you came in, at least you had a look, and we're happy to help in any way we can. Remember also the discount code 2Beards. That's going to be the $50 off discount code for the training course. One here, one there. That's us. Thank you so much for joining us. Kris, shout to you. Have a great rest of your day, everybody, and we'll see you for the next one.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, Anthony. This has been a lot of fun. Great way to start the week. If you guys do take the course, go on to work in blockchain. Share your stories with us, too. We want to hear about all the great things you guys go on and do from this. So appreciate you guys making the time and look forward to doing this again.
Absolutely. See you soon.
Take care, guys.